now joined by political analyst Dr. Dale McKinley. Dale, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Peter, and to the viewers as well.
So it's been quite a day today, hearing from senior female ANC figures. Lindiwe Sisulu a little bit earlier today, this afternoon, and then later Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. We've just played the interview now, and I just wonder your initial thoughts that have come to you after listening to that conversation.
Well, it sounded to me like she was, first of all, trying to justify to the nation and explain to the nation why she did what she did in terms of the vote, in terms of the inquiry and going against the party line. I think that was what she was trying to do, is to basically bring people into her confidence. I'm not sure that she was very convincing, but that we can talk about that. And then to also sort of present herself as a presidential candidate. You know, she's obviously made herself available, even though she hasn't gotten the necessary threshold. I think she still harbors the desire, and so she wants to present herself and all the bigger ideas, what you can do to the economy, what's wrong with ESCOM, how we can do these things, and present herself and as a political alternative. I think that's really what she was trying to do, and to make herself relevant. And yeah, that's my reading of her interview.
All right. Before the parliamentary vote, there was an NEC meeting, and she says we weren't allowed to speak. This NEC meeting, its decision excluded some of us. We weren't allowed to have our input. It may have changed the outcome. We don't know that, but it is interesting, and I don't remember a time where the airing of dirty laundry inside the ANC's NEC has been done so publicly by such senior people.
Yeah, it is. I think we have to go back a long way. I mean, we could probably garner some kind of examples in the lead up to Polokwane, but you're right. I mean, there's a clear rupture here, and the rupture's come out into the open, and there's no hiding it anymore. But Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma's explanation, her rationale for why she felt the need to go against the party line is a bit selective. I think even as the interviewer sort of tried to prod her in the case of, well, you know, when she was a minister and she was a leader of the ANC during the Jacob Zuma years, there were many times where there were many people in the ANC who wanted to argue against positions that were taken, who never got a chance to do so, who were left outside, but she didn't say anything then. So I think it's a bit selective for her to now raise this as a principled opposition, to say that also she misunderstands democratic centralism. Anyone who's been within the ANC and within the other parties that practice this know that what democratic centralism is the majority position, whatever that majority is. Doesn't mean everybody has to speak, doesn't mean everyone has to be heard. It means simply that a majority position is taken, and once that majority position is taken, everybody is bound by that position. So I'm not convinced by her rationale. I don't think many people who would be in the party would be convinced by it.
So is she sanctionable? I mean, we're talking about a very senior figure, has been respected for an enormously long period of time, and she says that others have done the same. The ANC, if they don't take action, there are consequences. If they do take action, there are consequences. What will they do?
Well, I think they're not going to. I don't think they're going to do anything right now. I mean, we're one day in front of a conference, and it would be politically, I think, very risky. I don't think it would achieve a great deal if they were to go and start acting right at this stage. I think we're going to see. Let's see what happens at the Congress. My sense is that it's going to be, as things stand, it seems it's going to be quite difficult for anybody to defeat the incumbent president, Cyril Ramaphosa. There's always that possibility, but it seems unlikely. If that's the case, and they come out of this conference and Cyril Ramaphosa is reelected, then I think he'll be in a much stronger position to potentially say, okay, not necessarily haul Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma in front of a disciplinary committee, but essentially sideline her politically. In other words, take her out of the cabinet, basically she becomes an ordinary member of the NEC possibly. And we've seen this happen in terms of political positions within the ANC and people being sidelined. I think 3 years ago, nobody expected that Ace Magashule would not be would be featuring not at all in the ANC Congress, but here we are, and his name is not even being mentioned anymore.
So, I mean, Lindiwe Sisulu and Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma have pretty much nailed their colors to the wall. Are they daring the president to fire them?
I don't know if they're daring him, but I certainly think they are basically saying, if you're going to act now. I think they're almost goading. It's almost like saying, if there's nothing like controversy for a ticket. There's nothing like, if you want attention, if you want to get people behind you and people to pay attention to you, you need controversy, you need conflict. And I think they've been stoking that, clearly, quite consciously, whether one thinks that's a good tactic or not. I tend to think it's backfired a bit on them. And in the ANC and the Congress, it's about numbers. It's about the branches come to a Congress, and if you have the numbers, if you have the branches, you'll get in. And it's clear that neither Lindiwe Sisulu nor Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma have those numbers. So I think that they're playing a longer term game to try to continue to make themselves relevant. But in the short term, it seems to me that they've lost the battle quite substantially.
All right. The conspiracy theorists might suggest that there's been a plot to try and disrupt and cause chaos and mayhem ahead of this election and find a way to remove Cyril Ramaphosa. Do you think the party has managed the crisis well enough to be able to deal with the conference, at least get through it?
Well, I would think, I think that's probably going to happen. I mean, look, it's going to be messy. ANC conferences always are messy. There's going to be some conflict. There's going to be shouting. There's probably going to be all sorts of points of order and these kinds of things being raised, no doubt, from the floor. And I think we've come to expect that. But in terms of crashing this Congress, I seriously doubt it. I doubt that's going to happen. Again, it's about numbers. I mean, we had ex-President Jacob Zuma just not too long ago, you making this sort of quite extreme comment to say that delegates mustn't allow Cyril Ramaphosa or Paul Mashatile to speak at the Congress. I mean, that's going, when you start taking those positions, I think you realize that the possibilities of that happening are fairly slim. But fundamentally, I think the lesson that we can take from what's been happening in the last few days is that the ANC is more important than anything else to anybody. So it's not about necessarily individuals. I mean, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma got one thing absolutely correct, which was to say there are many people that are dependent upon the ANC, and no more so than those that belong to it and those that hold positions and whose jobs and whose careers are on the line. And so the ANC is not something that people would want to destroy that are dependent upon that. And I think that's the glue that binds it together, irrespective of all of the chaos and all of the shenanigans that we're probably likely to see as well.
How do the ANC deal with the question that, you've got senior female figures like Lindiwe Sisulu, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who have put themselves forward for senior positions in the party, but it just seems as if the women's line is just getting worse and worse and worse, that they're getting less and less opportunities over time. Might something happen from the floor to try and deal with this?
It well could. I mean, it is quite a disgrace if one thinks about it in terms of the gender representativity at the leadership level of the ANC. It's better, obviously, at the lower levels and at the parliamentary level. But I mean, nobody is fooled. Men call the shots for the most part in the ANC and have for quite a long period of time. And that definitely needs to change. There's no doubt about that, whether it's the ANC or in our politics in general. My sense is that where the ANC Women's League and where a lot of the women who have sort of failed tactically is to bring young women into the picture. Younger women with a lot of new ideas, with creative energies. In fact, the ANC itself, I think, has really fundamentally failed on that front, and one of the reasons why they're hemorrhaging political support. So yes, it's about policy. You can have quotas, you can have resolutions around that in the ANC, but fundamentally, the ANC itself is going to be a reflection of its constituencies and its politics. And right now, they're not speaking to the large constituency, particularly of younger women. And as long as they do that, they're going to have a problem in relation to not only their gender politics, but their gender representativity.
Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma was also asked about what went wrong for the ANC. She offered a few reasons. She talked about branches, that the ANC really hadn't embedded themselves properly in those branches. She talked about the failure of resolutions being carried out from Conference 54, and also the weakness of the Youth League, that they didn't really have one. Is that a fair assessment from your take? Because she's been part of that leadership, hasn't she? So they have to all take the blame for it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one could, I don't think it's just Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma in the context of calling her out a little bit on the sort of contradictions here. I mean, let's be, if we look at history, in the ANC's history, the ANC started ignoring its own resolutions and policies straight from 1994. I mean, when the ANC came to power on the manifesto called the Reconstruction and Development Program, and within 2 years, they had more or less thrown most of it in the rubbish bin and replaced it with another policy, and everybody went along with that. And we've gotten a whole range of different kinds of policies. The ANC Youth League has been through crisis after crisis, so has its Women's League, its structures and its branches. These diagnoses and problems have been told us again and again and again for the last 20 years. So in some ways, I think this is the problem with the ANC. It's like a broken record. It's like it's going around in a merry-go-round, and everybody's saying, we've heard this before. Nobody's really willing to act. She was asked a question, does the ANC and the ANC leadership have the political will, in this case, to fix the ESCOM? But one could extend that question and say, do they have the political will to actually represent what her claim was, represent the people of South Africa in that case? And I don't think right now the present leadership, including the president, has that political will right now. I think they're more interested predominantly in keeping those positions, in keeping themselves in power, in keeping all of the flows of accumulation and other interests and perks and other things going. I'm not saying that that's every single person, but as a political party, that vehicle is moving. And for Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma to then say, for example, that we're going to fix these things that they haven't been able to fix for 25 years, I think is asking us to take many people into the confidence that they don't have anymore in the ANC.
Dale McKinley, always good talking to you. No doubt we'll have a few more conversations in the coming week or so.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, that's an independent author, writer, political analyst, Dr. Dale McKinley, talking to us after that interview that Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma gave to the SABC.